You are listening to a Pod Bros exclusive.
Hey now, everybody. Welcome back to a brand new Take Aim Outdoors. And as always, Brandon Ham is excited to be here with you guys today and excited to drop some knowledge today on some maps. And we're going to talk about OnXmaps, actually. And excited to have these two guys with me today, Ed Garmza and John Mulligan. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well.
Doing awesome. How you doing?
Not bad, not bad. I know we were just talking, but I'm very excited to start the 4th of July weekend and be on the lake, catch some rays, and hopefully go check some trail cameras as well.
That sounds like a good weekend.
Nothing wrong with that, right?
Not at all.
So, well, guys, we're going to kind of drop some knowledge about what you guys do at OnXmaps. So, Ed, if you want to start a little bit, give us some insight about what you guys provide to, hunters and laying out a piece of property.
So OnXmaps makes digital plat maps. For those of you that have ever used a plat map book, you buy it county by county. OnXmaps provides a digital version of that they sell state by state that gives all the public and private landowner information, shows the property outlines, gives the information about the owner if it's private, plus a ton of other, lot more information that's useful to the hunters.
That's interesting. I know that you guys have different ways of getting that to the people, so let's start with that, Ed. Like, how did we get that?
So there's basically two versions of getting, or two ways to get the information from OnXmaps. There's a little micro SD card chip that you can buy that works in Garmin handheld GPS units, or there's a mobile application that works on Apple and Android devices. Both provide the same basic information. The app actually has more information, satellite overlay maps, plus a host of different layers that you can turn on and off, where the chip is strictly just a flat topo map with the information, and it basically is what it is. You can't turn things on and off.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, does that SD card, does it work if I was just to put it into a computer, or does it have to be in a GPS?
Actually, there is a way to put it in the computer. So the chip is always looking for some sort of Garmin software, be it in a GPS unit or on your computer. You can download Garmin's free software called Basecamp. So if you download that program, stick the chip in, you can see all that information on a larger format. And Basecamp actually lets you mark waypoints and transfer them to your GPS or vice versa, take them from your GPS and put them on the computer. So you can see, kind of scout from home and see the information on a larger screen.
That's pretty cool. I know that I actually today downloaded the OnXmap on my iPhone, and it was super easy. It was free. I've yet to dive into it, but I'm kind of excited to start doing that. But to go back to the SD cards real quick, Ed, are you buying the Midwest? Are you buying the West? Or how does it work? Is it individual states, or what are we looking at?
So there's two versions or two ways to buy the chip. You can buy it state by state, or you can buy regional chips. So either chip is the same price. They retail for $100. The regional chips will provide 3, 4, 5 states on it, but it only shows the public land information. It shows no private landowner data. When you buy the state-specific chips, Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota, Iowa, then it puts all the private landownership information onto the chip.
Okay, so you can basically map out any type of, property borders, public land, private lands. You can do all that stuff.
Correct. Now, I will say that there's kind of a caveat to that. Even if you buy, the Michigan chip, it doesn't mean that it's 100% coverage. Not every state has all of the information. It kind of depends on what the county has on record, in each state. So if they have old or missing information, unfortunately, we're missing it as well. So when you buy either the map, the chip, or even app, you might run into places in your state where there's just no information. It'll have all the public, but some of the private might be missing.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. How often do you know, or if you know this, Ed, but how often do they update stuff like that?
They update every state at least once per year, with different features or different, changing land ownership information, or if the state redraws their, game management unit boundaries or things like that. So they update it at least once per year. That doesn't necessarily mean that the land ownership information changes. Again, if the county is behind in updating their plat information, so are we. It's just kind of the nature of the beast.
Gotcha. That's pretty cool. So layer-wise, let's say we picked out a spot, we're in the state, we'll just stay with Michigan, Ed, but so what are we looking at once we get to, like, this is my hunting area, this is what I'm looking at? What does the map do from there?
So on the chip, like I said, it's pretty static. It's just going to be basically a 2D map showing topo lines and property boundaries. But when you switch over now to the app on your mobile device, you've got 17 different base layers, I think. There might be more than that. There's 3 different satellite overlays. There's a couple different topo layers, kind of a 3D view or a 2D view. There's layers that show just kind of a blank base map so that the information kind of pops out at you. But then in there you can turn on different game management unit boundaries. Not a big thing in the Midwest like it is out west. So if deer zones are drawn and you have to stay in a specific area, it'll show those boundaries. There's layers that show weather. There's layers that show road information. One of the newest layers that they added a couple months ago was a Boone and Crockett layer, where it shows historical data for where Boone and Crockett animals have been harvested throughout the state.
That's a pretty nifty little tool. That's pretty cool. I had no clue it did that.
Yeah, you can change, that's a free layer for people. You can change it, based on what kind of animal you're looking at. So it lists it, kind of shows it county by county. It's kind of a heat map. So the darker red it is, the more, Boone and Crockett animals that were historically taken from that area.
Oh, that's super amazing. Now, Ed, if you were to walk somebody through this, let's just say on an iPhone or Android, what's the first step you do to kind of start this process?
Well, so, you alluded to downloading the app. The app itself is free. Anybody can download it. If you're not a user now, you can download the app and get a 7-day free trial for any state you want. It'll show you all the information. We don't limit, what it is that we show you in that free trial. After that, it is $30 per year per state. There's a couple states that are $35, and some of the states in the east, far northeast, are a little bit cheaper. But on average, it's $30 a year per state, and that gives you access to our information for an entire year, with all the layers and information.
That's to me, that's super reasonable. When you can pay a small fee like that to get the peace of mind of knowing pretty much every boundary of a piece of state land, even knowing how many Boone and Crockett bucks, even knowing the weather. I mean, that is amazing. What an awesome tool that is.
Well, one plat map book, if you buy a paper map, for a county, that's $30, $40, $50 for one county. We give you the whole, a whole state for the $30.
Yeah, that's right. You can't beat that at all.
And you can also use that account on 2 devices. So if you've got a phone and a tablet, you can actually register that account on 2 different devices. So for $30 for 2 devices, that's pretty inexpensive.
Yeah, that's a great tool as well, because many times, your phone is limited to how big it is. So it'd be nice to get back to camp and you can, bust out an iPad and kind of enlarge that screen a little bit.
Right.
So, John, I know we're kind of got some insight on you just before the show, but before we get into you and your piece of property, tell me a little bit about the multiple nicknames of Ed.
So Ed and I had met just kind of through emails and phone conversations, and you see a picture of somebody on Facebook, and you're kind of like, okay, so he's a normal sized person, and I don't think I'd ever seen any comparisons. So of him standing next to somebody, and if he was, I didn't know how tall that person was. So the first time that Ed and I actually met face-to-face is at the Wisconsin deer show, and I'm turning down the aisle, and I look up, and I see him, and I'm like, holy crap, this guy's a giant. He's like super tall. So he was much taller than I thought. I'm like 5'10", so everybody's kind of tall to me. But, yeah, so, you know, sometimes I'll call him Sasquatch, or, you know, we refer to him as a giant. And I think that's always kind of a fun thing to do. If somebody's 6'5" or 6'6", you treat them like they're Andre the Giant, you know. Just kind of add a few inches to them.
Absolutely. Well, I definitely, I'm sure we're going to run into each other, so I'm going to have to keep the nicknames in mind for Ed.
You can't miss me, that's for sure.
So, John, I know that you had recently, you know, purchased a piece of property in Iowa, and you got a great connection between the OnXmaps and your piece of ground. So do you want to kind of fill us in on that story a little bit?
Yeah, so it worked out really nice because we actually bought this piece that my kids were still finishing the school year back in Kentucky. So my wife's like, I really don't want to move until we all move together. So I was able to sit in Kentucky, and you can better believe about every night I had my OnXmap on my phone or on my computer, and I'm studying my ground because it's all new territory for me. And I'm like, wow, look, old man Robert's down the road. Man, he's got a big chunk of land. Maybe I need to try to go knock on his door, you know, when I get settled in. But I knew all my boundaries and I knew my topos, which helped me out a ton because with any of us, you know, you go to a new piece of ground, and the hardest thing is just learning the layout and learning where your saddles are and where your funnels might be and stuff. So I had plenty of time to kind of study that from afar. Without actually having to put, you know, feet and, you know, boots on the ground. So my very first day that I actually got to walk my whole property, other than when we had met with the realtor, I actually got to walk every square inch, and I had a logger with me because I knew I had some black walnut on my property that I wanted to log. So I was using the GPS at the time, and I'm just following a property line. And I'm walking down this, and, you know, what to me is an invisible line, but I'm following it on the map. And then I start coming across all these tree stumps, and like fresh sawdust everywhere. And I'm like, man, this is kind of weird, you know, like this was all recently logged. My degree is in horticulture, so I'm looking at these stumps. I'm going, well, that's a black walnut. That's a red oak. That's a white oak. There's another black walnut. And I'm like, what the heck's going on here, you know? And I ended up getting tripped on something, and I didn't know if I just was clumsy and tripped over a branch or a stump or whatever, and it was actually the metal stake that was holding one of the property flags. Long story short, my neighbor, very friendly neighbor, I think he capitalized on the opportunity that the property had just sold, but I hadn't moved in yet, and this was a great chance to help himself to some of my black walnut trees. So he did a little logging and sold my trees for money. And basically the OnXmap is what saved me because, you know, you're looking at an abstract or a paper map, and you've got all these ridges and the terrain changes that are rolling. There's no way to really tell exactly where that line is. So by using the OnXmap, I was able to walk down that property line, found the actual stakes, and then got the landowner that lives next to me. And I said, hey, you and I need to have a little conversation over here. And he's like, well, you can't trust. He's like, well, I have an abstract. So he goes in his house, and he comes back out with this piece of paper. And he unfolds this piece of paper, and it looks like something Jack Sparrow had on the Black Pearl. And he's got this 40-year-old piece of paper that's like, you know, crusty, burnt edges and this, that, and the other. And I said, well, I'm using 2016 technology. And he's like, you know, those GPS, you can't trust those things. You know, the government's got that all rigged. I'm like, well, I definitely trust this more so than I do your Jack Sparrow map that you've got. So we ended up kind of coming to a compromise. It's still in the process. We're negotiating on exactly how much money does he owe me, and it's probably going to be a mess. But without
now, John, let me ask real quick. How did that? I mean, you just dropped, you know, some coin on a new piece of property, but I mean, were you like just that gut, your sinking feeling in your stomach that like, holy cow, somebody just, jacked my trees, ripped me off a bunch of money?
Yeah.
That's,
Well,
yeah, I mean, that's horrible.
Yeah. So, I mean, in my previous life, I retired as a police officer. So I'm used to people stealing from other people and things like that. But I can honestly say in my entire career, I never was a part of an investigation of a tree theft, So a whole
That's
new
a first.
experience to me. Yeah. And I'm thinking, oh, you got to be kidding me. Much less I was really never much of a victim. I dealt with a lot of other victims, but it was kind of a, hey, welcome to Iowa. I just stole your trees. So it was kind of unique.
That's like not the welcome party you wanted.
No, I don't think I'll be borrowing a cup of sugar from him anytime soon.
So what's happened since then?
So we've gone back and forth. We've come to somewhat of a resolution that I believe he's going to log some property or some trees that are legally on his property, and then that's how he's going to reimburse me for the money that he owes me for the trees that he stole. That's where we're at right now, but it could very well change by tomorrow.
By tomorrow. Oh, that's crazy. So continuing kind of with your OnXmaps and use of the property, what else did you kind of grasp and learn from it?
So, like I said, coming to a new property, the hardest thing for me to figure out has always just been getting that big picture and getting that big aerial to see where the other crops are in relation to your property and to try to pinpoint what direction or what path those deer are going to be traveling on. And I had so much time to study those maps before I even moved here so when I moved here, I was literally able to kind of hit the ground running. We were able to get our food plots in, and then again, sitting, and I was referring to, Old Man Roberts, that wasn't really his name, but I went and knocked on the guy's door, the piece of property that I found on the OnXmap, and I said, hey, you've got a piece of ground that I like the way it lays, I like the way the topo and the way the deer are going to funnel through your property. And he's like, thank heavens you showed up. Please hunt my property. I hate my deer. They eat all my soybeans. And I said, I'm your guy. I'll help you out, Sutter. So it's just been a huge help, knowing exactly where those property lines are and knowing what chunks of parcels people have. And I think it's kind of nice whenever you go, people that do knock on doors a lot. I know that's very popular in Michigan and Illinois and Wisconsin and stuff. And you go knock on doors, it kind of adds something nice where you can say, hey, how you doing there, Mr. Roberts? I'm so-and-so. And it makes them feel like, I think you've done a little bit of homework, a little bit.
That's a huge feature, just to be able to, like you said, hey, Mr. Williams, and break that ice, because it's a little intimidating for anybody to walk up to somebody, at basically a stranger's door and say, hey, how you doing? Want to hunt here?
And I always add in, the fact that you've had an aerial perspective of their property, you've seen it. I like to compliment them on their property. You've got a beautiful chunk of ground. It lays really nice. You've got the pond on the back, northwest corner of your property. And, you're complimenting them, but you're also, like I said, you're showing them you've done some homework. You've looked at their property, and you appreciate their property probably the same way they did when they bought it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's such a great tip and a great point to just be complimentary, and that it makes them feel good. And it, like you said, it just relates to them exactly what they might have seen when they bought the piece of ground.
Sure.
So what do you guys have planned for this coming year, and is there anything you're going to use to incorporate your OnXmaps for this coming season?
You want to talk about that one, John?
So Ed and I have a little adventure set forth coming up here, and we're actually looking at heading out to Montana on an antelope hunt. And this isn't Wisconsin, it's not Kentucky, it's not Iowa. So this is all foreign ground to Ed and I, and seeing topos and looking at the large parcels of land and making sure that we're not crossing property lines and things like that. It's going to be an invaluable tool for us that we'll be able to use on the go. and just, you've got all those maps and all those features that you're not having to fold up in a piece of paper. It's right on your phone, or it's right on your handheld unit. So that's something that Ed and we've got coming up in September that we're looking to do. And obviously I know Ed uses a ton in his home state, and I continue to use it to also look at the public land. My property is located really close to a big 2,000 acre public chunk of land, and you can't walk all of that. You know what I mean? I mean, you can, but it's going to take multiple seasons and things like that. And let's face it, we all have day jobs, so it just gives you. It's another tool. It's a time saver. It's a huge time saver to study new ground.
Yep. For me, when I'm not chasing deer, I chase deer in Wisconsin on private land out in southwestern Wisconsin. And when I'm not out there sitting in a tree, I'm chasing waterfowl here on my side of the state. So not necessarily bow hunting related, but I use it, just like John said, to knock on doors. We follow the geese, and we get permission to hunt, a field wherever the geese were the day before. Here in Wisconsin, you can't necessarily knock on a door to get permission to hunt deer because they're sacred here. Basically, you knock on a door and ask to shoot deer, they chase you off with a shotgun.
Same with Michigan, Ed. So I feel.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. I tell people out west about this, and they don't believe me. But there's some public land around here that I might chase deer on this year. But for me, on my side of the state, I use it for scouting for turkey and waterfowl a lot.
Yeah, I love that idea, and I love the concept that, I always travel to a couple states, so-called out of state, every year, and I'm definitely excited, this year, next year to kind of play with this, system of OnXmaps, and I think it just alleviates so much pressure to know an area before you get there, kind of like John had touched on earlier.
Right.
Well, I'm excited for you guys in your Montana elk hunt. When are you guys leaving for that day?
Well, we got to make sure we could get tags first. We're, thinking end of September if we can make this work.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, John, have you done anything to kind of, planning ahead to hide Ed a little better because he's 7'2"?
I think we're gonna invest in some Montana decoys or something like that.
We'll have to get the big Montana the big confidence call decoy. I can hide behind that.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see if they can make one in an XXL size, and hopefully the antelope out there don't think, good Lord, look at this. This is the largest antelope we've ever seen in our lives. Let's run. But no, we'll hide him. I'm sure we'll be doing some belly crawling and
we'll have to rely on our camouflage clothing for sure.
That's right. Yep.
Well, that's super awesome.
It'll be a fun trip.
Yeah, for sure. Now, have you guys happened to hunt this part of Montana before, or this is just on a whim that you guys kind of playing this?
Kind of on a whim. I was in Montana, southwestern Montana last year, chasing elk and mule deer in the mountains for 8 days. So this will be a little bit different terrain. Antelope won't be in the mountains; will be on the prairie somewhere. So a little bit different part of the state. Obviously, a little bit harder to hide. Spot and stalk archery antelope is probably one of the hardest things out there to do.
Oh, absolutely, it is. Well, that's cool. I'm excited for you guys. John, I know you're in the, my favorite area of the world. You're in Iowa, so do you have anything, kind of up and coming for, let's call them a hit list deer for this year that you're excited about?
Very much so. The first couple of months that we were here, there was a lot of time in the woods. I had skid steers, and we were putting in food plots, and we were pulling trees and things like that. So I knew that this summer I was probably going to be scaring every deer to the next county. Now that we've got the major part of the stuff done, and now it's just more trail cameras and things and a few trails. And, of course, I have to keep checking on my food plots because of the lack of rain. They're not doing too much. But I actually, about 2 weeks ago, I got a slammer that showed up on 3 different cameras, and he really seems to be hanging around one of the bedding areas. And I think he's going to be a local deer. Now, I don't know what will happen come fall. He might be a summer deer, and then I might have a whole bunch of new deer, come fall, and he might be, the next county. But, of course, me coming from Kentucky, I get a picture of this deer, and I'm like, oh, my gosh, I'm going to be on the cover of every whitetail magazine in the world if I can kill this buck. And, of course, for Iowa, he's just a normal deer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's so funny. It's just totally no big deal in Iowa.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, he's all right. I don't know, you might let him go another year. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? He's got 2 months to grow, and he's bigger than anything I ever killed in Kentucky.
That is awesome. Well, guys, man, I appreciate you guys coming on the show today and dropping some knowledge on maps and OnXmaps and what you guys do with that stuff, and just giving, up-and-coming hunters and bow hunters or somebody who just wants to up their game just some knowledge, and I think it's awesome. So, Ed, why don't you real quick let us know where we can find OnXmaps, social media-wise, website-wise, stuff like that.
So, if you want to purchase it right from the company, you actually go to www.huntinggpsmaps.com. That's where you can find blogs, videos, how-tos, tutorials. You can buy the chips, buy the app. You can also get it in retail, Cabela's, Bass Pro, Sportsman's Warehouse, Gander Mountain, or you can just buy the app right from your phone. If you download the free trial, you can get your yearly subscription right through the iTunes store or Google Play store. OnXmaps is on social media, Facebook, Instagram. I think that's about it. And you can go online and subscribe to their newsletter that they come out with every couple weeks, get some blogs and information from the pro staff team out there, and blogs that the company does. There's a lot of information that they definitely pump out, every couple weeks, including updates to the maps and things like that.
Absolutely. And John, I know I see your mug all over Facebook, but let us know where we can find you as well.
As one of the owners of Wood Tree Gear, that's kind of my day job. But Instagram and Facebook. Instagram, I use Johnny Utah Mulligan, and try to stay pretty active on that. Keep a lot of photos and kind of keep it current with what I'm doing, kind of semi-live.
That's perfect, man. And guys, I very much appreciate it. And you guys are always welcome to be back on the show anytime you have something to say. Just let me know. And everybody out there, this show will be out Tuesday, just like always. iTunes, podbros.com, Stitcher, Outdoor Podcast channel, live every Tuesday. And we'll see you guys next week.